And welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, I'm really excited about today's episode. My guest is Dr. Allison Pontius. She's a facial plastic surgeon with a very interesting story. So Dr. Pontius made a huge shift in her career 15 years ago when she changed her focus to 100% non-surgical procedures, including regenerative aesthetics, hair treatments, and skincare. Then she made another huge shift a couple years ago when she moved from a very big practice in New York to working independently in a boutique practice in California. Now, Dr. Pontius is now growing her new practice as a board-certified Master Injector and anti-aging expert in gorgeous Santa Barbara, California. If you haven't been there, you have to before you die. It is the most gorgeous place on the planet. She's also worked with her plastic surgeon spouse for the past 19 years, so we're going to learn more about that. So Dr. Pontius, welcome to Beauty and the Biz. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's just start with, how did you end up in New York in a very big practice a long time ago?
Yeah, so I did my otolaryngology training in Dallas, and then I matched for my fellowship with Ed Williams in Albany. And I did that, and then I left and started practice in Manhattan. So for the first 3 years, I was doing surgery, cosmetic only in New York City. And it was great until it wasn't, and it was just time to move out of the city. And so luckily, I was able to move upstate New York and join a really successful big practice and really just integrate. At that point, I had shifted towards wanting to do more non-surgical work and was able to do that in that practice.
And did you, when you got to that big practice, were you like a contractor or an employee or something?
I was an employee in the beginning, yeah.
And didn't you, I remember, weren't you doing anti-aging at that point? Like, what were the services you were offering?
Yeah. So in 2007, I was still doing plastic surgery. I got really interested in anti-aging, like obsessed with it. And I decided to do the A4M fellowship, which is at that time, nothing online. We had to fly once a month somewhere in the country, go to courses all, for 3-4 days. And that took the course over 2 years. So I got really into it. And I thought that's really what I wanted to make my focus. It was new. It was like the future. And I was really, really intrigued with it. So I did, when I moved upstate, started practicing anti-aging. So yeah, for about 3-4 years, I sat with patients. We went through their whole life story, their diet, their supplements, their hormone balance, and did that for quite a while. I was still tinkering with injecting as well on the side. So I was doing a little bit of both. And then actually we had a consultant come in and kind of looked at me and what I was doing and just said, you know what, your time is really better spent doing the injectables financially. And so I thought about that a lot. And I love the anti-aging, but being more surgically trained, sitting with a patient for, an hour plus, I wasn't in love with that. It just wasn't me. So I really wanted to shift back into doing more procedures.
Okay. By the way, I was I was speaking at a conference in Vegas in December, and down the hall was the A4M or whatever that's called.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands of people. I remember 15 years ago, it used to be this little weird meeting. It has grown into unbelievable.
Yeah. I really think aesthetics and anti-aging are starting to merge. And I think that's really the future kind of combination in this, arena. Not that injectors are going to be practicing it, but I think merging practices that offer both is the way it's going to go. So,
my spin on it is, I like anti-aging more than I like well-being. I know, I work on well-being, but my vanity is tickled when I talk about anti-aging. So if you can turn back that clock without surgery and with supplements and with anything else,
I know.
I'm on board. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like the term anti-aging. I know it's like controversial and people want to say, yeah, wellness medicine, whole body medicine, medicine 3.0, longevity medicine. But I think coming from our angle in aesthetics, like anti-aging just has the biggest appeal. So, you know, yeah, I think it's a great field, and you have to have that whole body health, really doing the things for your nutrition, your sleep, your supplements. It all, contributes to how we look. So it really plays, I think, a really vital role.
Well, and especially when we've got 76 million baby boomers,
Oh my
who
God, yeah.
got a lot older, and this is the last big hurrah for the older folks. So
Oh yeah.
I just think it's just a really, good field for you to be in. But let me ask you a question about being in that big practice that you were
Yeah.
in. You ran that med spa, if I'm not mistaken, after.
Well, I was there, pretty much the key, injector there. Skill wise, patient volume, all of that, and helped guide, the mid-level practitioners as well in their practice. So yeah.
But it was it was a big med spa, a lot of providers, a lot
Yeah.
of patients, a lot of activity going through there. Do you have any tips for inventory control, staff issues, the Botox walking out the door, any of that? Do you have any tips for that? Because that comes up in almost every practice I consult with. Something's funny going on there.
Yeah. I mean, we had that down to a science. Like, there was not a unit of Botox that was unaccounted for. And, we did it really by being really well prepared. We pre-drew out the Botox in every different dilution and every different, number of units, and really, almost counted it like you would count a narcotic in the hospital. We count in the morning. Every time we use it, a label for that amount of Botox was put into like a ledger, and then we counted it at night. And those two, we had to be able to reconcile those two. So we kept a really tight hold on our inventory, and the same routine with the skincare as well. So yeah, there was no way anything was going to get, misplaced in the office. So
I also remember that they were doing like numbered multi-page super bills.
yeah, there was a lot of process um, for that. And yeah, the nighttime closing there was so much accounting going on to just make sure everyone was charged correctly, that every number lined up. And it really took them probably an hour to go through that every night. So a lot of emphasis on that in that practice. And it was big enough that you had the staff to do it. It's hard now, you've got, a few staff members, and it was really quite an ordeal. It's easier with less injectors. You have less inventory to, be aware of, but it was a really good system. And I think everyone knew, we were on top of it and nothing was going to walk away.
I think that's the big tip there. As long as staff knows you're watching, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
I watch too many surgeons have a med spa portion to their practice, and it's almost like the stepchild. It's like, yeah, it's great, and I'll check the numbers once a month, but just that cavalier attitude about it, that's how the Botox walks out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy. You've got a refrigerator full of, 50 boxes if you're not keeping a close eye, one could easily, go away without anyone knowing. And it just adds up over time. So yeah, I think having a good process, whatever it is, even on a smaller scale, may not be printing out labels for every unit, but counting morning and counting night, and then reconciling that with the patient's, bills, that what we use during that day adds up.
By the way, in that med spa, there were a whole bunch of females, and
Yep.
females working together day after day, and all the patients, it can create some drama. Any tips on how you kept that down, or how you motivated the team? And did you have fun
Yeah.
with work?
Yeah, it's so funny. One of my assistants that worked with me a lot just texted me literally yesterday saying, I miss it so much when we were so behind, we were in the weeds, but we were laughing and we were having the best time. So yeah, you've got to make it fun. You've got to just, everyone got along there really interestingly. There was certainly some drama, but not so much in the medical, staff, sometimes the front desk and, different areas. But I think the providers, the assistants, the patient care coordinators, like we had a really good time. We knew how to lighten it up, but also we worked super hard. And I think that's the balance. Like I'm a really hard worker and I want everyone else to work as hard as I am, but we want to laugh at the same time. Otherwise, yeah, what's the point? So.
Well, good for you for that. And then, so just regarding being a facial plastic surgeon and then making that decision to step away pretty much from surgery and go non-surgical, what kind of mindset or what kind of decision making goes into that? Because that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big shift.
It is. It is. I for some reason in my life, I tend to make really big decisions and I don't overanalyze it. Like I know in my gut, that's what I want. And then I figure out how to do it. So yeah, at that point I really wanted my facial plastic surgery boards. I needed 100 facelifts. I did 100 facelifts. And then I really looked at my life and it was about 2005 to 2007. We had Restylane and Juvederm and Botox, I think was about the portfolio available, but it was just, when you go into practice and you want to do all cosmetics as a newly fresh out of fellowship, you end up doing a lot of non-surgical because they're not walking in the door for a facelift on your first day out. So I ended up doing a lot of Botox and fillers and peels and smaller procedures. And I really loved them. And I loved I could go home and I didn't have to, worry about a hematoma and worry about results. I could really just sleep well at night. So, yeah, a combination of lifestyle and the field just starting to boom. And it just seemed like a great opportunity. And I knew my anatomy. I technically, felt like I could do a really good job with this and just made the call. I'm going to do non-surgical. So yeah, it actually was one of the best decisions I made. I don't regret it. It was great.
Good for you. Did you have any special training or because in those days they're like pretty much the pharma companies were doing the training, right? Like how
Yeah.
did you get really good at it?
Well, it took time. I mean, it honestly, even now it's been 20 years. I finally feel like I'm really good at it, but I didn't feel that way for at least the first 10. We were sort of muddling our way through it. It was a lot of trial and error. It was, Allergan or Galderma would come in and do some training, but even their training was pretty limited because the only on-label use was like the nasolabial fold or glabella Botox. So it was really limited. Over the years, as that started expanding, trainings got better. Ultimately, you can learn from the companies, but you've got to invest in your own training. And it's more than just the meetings. You've really got to find who's the best and go and train with them. And that's what I did. Maybe 5 years ago, I really invested my time and money and energy into being, the best I could possibly be, trained, with, Tom Van Eyck, Arthur Swift, like just some of the best in the field. And that for me was everything. Just, it really taught me how to go from being pretty good to being pretty exceptional, just based on that.
Just out of curiosity, do you just call these doctors and ask them if you can shadow them? Do you pay them? Do you
Yeah,
do
no, I
them a
paid.
favor?
I actually did a private training with Tom Van Eyck in New York City. And we spent half a day and just he'd even take my hand and move it the way he wanted to move it. And that was fantastic. Arthur Swift, I went to one of his advanced injection courses, and there's such a well-produced 3 days. I mean, what you gain, it was amazing. So for those two, that's how I did that. But yeah, and they're expensive. A lot of these trainings are expensive, but you don't need I mean, just to really get the way to think about the face, the way to look at the face, it's all in the analysis and the plan. We can all inject, and we want to do it safely, but it is all in looking at a face, measuring the face, and knowing what to do. And that's what turned the dial and really made my results go from so to much better.
I can tell you, I was around. I would be the collagen guinea pig when somebody was, needed the model, and I would have like dollops all over my face because nobody knew what the heck they were doing. And then they would the overzealous filler. So I, had the chipmunk look and all of that.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
thought, this is the silliest. Why are we doing all these fillers? We look ridiculous. And
Yeah.
when you really look ridiculous when you look at yourself in photos.
I was just going to say.
I mean, because you can kid yourself in your own mirror, but when you look in photos, you're like, I look ridiculous.
Yep.
And now, as I've gotten older, and thank God everyone's gotten more experienced, or some have. I mean, you have to really know who you're going to, because they can make all the difference in the world.
I couldn't agree more. I look at old pictures of myself too, and yeah, I already have a big face. It was like a chipmunk face. It was so bad, and that's that perception drift. You get so used to seeing it, you start to think that's normal and that looks good. And gosh, when you can unlearn that, you're like, oh my God, what were we doing? Like, it's amazing. I don't know how we survived those early years, but yeah, techniques are so much better. Opportunities are so much better now. There's so many trainings available. And yeah, it's much easier, I think, now. I mean, it's getting a little saturated in the field, but to get into it and to have a little bit of a jump start is so much better now than 15 years ago, for sure.
Well, just as a consumer, all injectors are not alike. Such a vast difference in skill set.
I agree. And that's my prediction for the future. Even though we're kind of cranking out these kind of mass med spas right now and private equity is buying them, I think there's going to be a return to expertise and a return even to a physician. I mean, there's excellent injectors of all, training levels, but I do think the pendulum is going to swing back to kind of just, safety, expertise, one-on-one relationship, and kind of away from the, Starbucks of Botox thing. I mean, I think we'll always have both, but I do think there's still a niche for the individual, physician or provider in our field doing good work on a smaller scale, perhaps.
Well, especially for that demographic who isn't looking for a promo, they're looking for a really good natural result for the aging face. There's a really big group that cares a lot more about your skill than they do about saving money. And I just know if you've had bad filler before, you think twice then about who's going to do it the next time. So
yeah.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit, because also when you were at that big practice in New York, you also happened to be working next to your husband, who was a plastic surgeon there.
Yes.
And another very unusual, I mean, I talk a lot about, there are a lot of couples, like the plastic surgeon and the wife is typically the office manager.
Yes.
So several practices, the wife is the plastic surgeon and then the husband is the office manager. But however, in your case, you have two surgeons working together. So what is that like?
It's funny. We've always worked together. We met on my first day of internship, and I think we've pretty much worked together ever since. So it's hard to know different. But, when I did decide to go to non-surgical, a lot of it was, I mean, it's hard when you have two surgeons and pagers are going off in the middle of the night, and, it's a lot. So going non-surgical was great to kind of just buffer that. So one of us had a little more flexibility in life. But yeah, I think working together, we definitely see eye to eye. We have the same aesthetic. We kind of get each other, but you don't want to be on top of each other in the office. So in the big practice, he worked on the second floor. I worked on the third floor. I often never saw him, just unless in passing. We weren't, really directly working together, which was nice. And we work together more now because we're in a smaller practice, but different days, different times, we have different coordinators. So we, same vision, but if it's just nonstop togetherness, it takes a toll because you can never turn it off. We come home, we're talking about work, and it just starts to take away a little bit from your relationship outside of work. So I think it's great because we get each other, you can really be on the same page, back each other up, but you need a little distance, and now our thing is when we walk through our front door, the conversation stops or decreases.
But then what do you talk about if it's not work?
Nothing. No.
Very quiet.
We still talk about work, but we don't get too controversial at home. We'll talk about what's coming up, what we want to, focus on, maybe social media, kind of the more lighter-hearted issues.
Yeah.
Not so much, oh, we got to fire this person or do, more difficult things.
All right. So you're in New York and you're there for a long time. Your husband works there as well. And somehow I didn't know anything about this, but I'm on the internet. I'm out here in Sausalito, California. I was looking up another client and I see this website and it's you and it's like Southern California. And I went, what? I was so like, where am I? And so please, how in the world did you get from New York to Santa Barbara, California?
I know it's an interesting story. I grew up in Southern California. I was born in Pasadena. I grew up in San Luis Obispo, and I went to college in Santa Barbara. So my heart has always been here. And, I was in New York a total of 18 years, and 18 New York winters for a Southern California person is more than enough. So part of it was just missing home and wanting to be back in Southern California. And part of it too, just in that big practice, I had kind of felt like I reached my potential there. I stopped seeing new patients. I had a full practice. I was seeing in, the order of 15 to 20 people a day. It was very fast paced. My prices were as high as I could possibly charge. And I just was getting a little bored, honestly. I just didn't see where I could go from there in that setting. So partly I just what you need to change. I was telling you earlier, middle of a global pandemic, I turned 50. I looked at my life and, as I'm sitting at home during the quarantine and just said, is this it for me? And I just realized my heart was in California and I needed to come back and I needed to branch out and just try my own thing. And luckily, my husband's very empathetic to that. And we talked about it for months and months and months before we ever made that decision. But it seemed like we both needed a change and we went for it.
So how do you just the mindset alone, the courage to do that is one thing, but then when you decide you're going to do something, and that's the secret. Once you decide, now you have to plan.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you even make that move logistically?
I know it did take a lot of planning. I knew I wanted to be in Santa Barbara or Montecito, which is sort of a suburb of Santa Barbara.
I mean, isn't that where Oprah Winfrey lives, for God's sake? It is breathtakingly gorgeous.
Oprah, Prince Harry and Meghan, Gwyneth Paltrow, all the, not just big celebrities, but the wealth here is beyond anything I had, experienced previously, even in New York City. So it's a very consolidated area. It's only 10,000 people in Montecito. There's about 100,000 in Santa Barbara. But, it just seemed like the place that I would fit the best because I wanted to do this very customized treatments, very patient-centric, longer appointments, leaving a lot more flexibility in the appointments where we don't have to lock them into, you're getting Botox today, I don't have time for filler, come back. I wanted it to be, we're a bit of a concierge practice, so I wanted to cater a little more to the patient. So We looked at, you're not going to really join another plastic surgeon per se. It's just, we didn't really look at the plastic surgery practices here, but we were looking at doctors that did complementary things. I looked at anti-aging. We found like this beautiful practice in Montecito, a gynecologist who focuses only on aesthetic gynecology, sexual health, hormone replacement, some anti-aging as well. And for me, just with my background too, it was just a great fit. And so I just cold called them and said, I'm moving here. Are you interested in a plastic surgeon and a injecting facial plastic surgeon? And they were so gracious. We met, we flew out here on a moment's notice. We met, and they're just like it's a couple, they're the, great people, and they're like yes people. And that was my thing leaving New York. I wanted to just say yes to like whatever opportunities came my way. And they were kind of on the same page. They're, we're like, let's go for it. It complements, each other well. And so we, we talked a lot. And we joined them.
Was the point that he was going to feed you patients, or he was just going to rent some space and you were going to figure out how to grow this yourself? Like, how in the world do you enter a new marketplace when you don't know anybody?
Exactly. No, he fed us a lot and continues to feed us a lot of patients. He's been in practice here for decades. Does see a lot of the, more prestigious people that live here, and has a great reputation in the community. And it's the same patients. These are middle-aged women, are the bulk of the patients, which are, the bulk of my patients, even in my husband's plastic surgery practice. So the demographic was perfect. There wasn't a lot, there's definitely some good, injectors and plastic surgeons in Santa Barbara, but it's not a saturated market here at all. We felt that there was room for us to be here too.
Wow. I know you came up with your own signature procedure. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, when, we were thinking about marketing, and I do most all of my patients, I do this full face facial rebalancing. And the woman that does our marketing was like, you need your name on this. Women never put their name on things. It's always men. And I was like, you're right. Let's try it. So we kind of came out with the Pontius technique. I didn't want lift because I don't, I know fillers don't lift, and I'm not trying to, market something just for the sake of marketing it, but it really, it is my technique, and I do it really methodically on almost every patient. And so we decided that would be a good thing to put out there.
Can you tell us what the recipe is?
Yeah, I mean, I really like, especially in California where we are, it's a much more natural look than even, New York was. And so I actually measure the facial thirds, the facial fifths, where the face is deficient. I look at the light and shadows of the face. So, most commonly I'm injecting, from the temple, sometimes the mid forehead, but often the temple, the lateral mid face, the piriforms, the jawline, the chin, and creating a lot of structure. So the face never looks puffy or filled, but it's contoured and shaped. And so that is kind of my look. It's super subtle. And the before and afters, I think people look really pretty, but you wouldn't put your finger on that they have 8 syringes of filler or, whatever it might be.
Actually, I've seen your photos at the meetings, and I always say to myself, I want that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, good job with that. So thankfully you have the surgeon, and the secret was you joined somebody who's been in the game a long time, has a great reputation, must have had a huge patient list. So now is he cross-promoting other services to his list?
Yeah, I mean, we try to cross-pollinate, now that our practices are picking up. Now I'm looking at the patient's skin and saying, without estrogen, our skin's not hydrated. We don't build, collagen very well. Why don't you see our other doctor and just explore it may not be right for you, but it might be, and it actually may make your entire life feel a little bit better. So we're trying to kind of go in all directions. But yeah, the women that come here that are really concerned about, their well-being, their sexual health, et cetera, are interested in looking the best they can look here. So yeah.
Well, I would say next to filler, estrogens and the other miracle that was invented. Thank
Non-negotiable.
God. Yeah, thank God. So regarding marketing, because this is new for you, you never had to market before, and now
No.
you do, or do you have to? Is this all word of mouth down there, or what's the market like there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unique market. It is, we do a word of mouth is probably the most important. So me getting out there, going to yoga classes, going to charity events, and just getting my face out there has been really important. So kind of that boots on the ground work. We market in this area, and Montecito does these quarterly, very high-end magazines, and normally print. I don't think I've done print in the last 15 years, but the print here is really helpful because those magazines sit in the high-end spas, in the hair salons, and they stay for at least 3 months until the next issue comes out. So you get a lot of exposure. Just people will recognize me just from that. So that's been good. And then just, optimizing, Google My Business. We're still working on the website. We're kind of redoing that right now. And social media, which we've been doing. I think we're going to take it to the next level now. So the usual things, but in this community, word of mouth and just a lot of those high-end magazines have been really beneficial.
And I think hobnobbing in the community is a really big deal, keeping you out there in front of everybody. God, that's how you do it. And thankfully, yoga, everyone loves yoga. Personally, I was so bored, I just hated it. I need to run or walk, or I need to move. I didn't, it wasn't my thing, but what a great opportunity to like get to know the community. Maybe the charity events or the pro bono kind of things, and print could be making a comeback, especially as everything going on with digital marketing or Google search and all of that. That's getting a little crunchy. So I would start looking at other ways. Regarding social media, honestly, I'm thinking social media is going to take over SEO here pretty soon for all sorts of reasons. But then you have to become this personality. And do you like it? Like I like your Instagram a lot. If anyone needs to see someone who's totally buffed, it was amazing. Like I really didn't even recognize you. She was buffed. She had like 5% fat. Like it was amazing.
Yeah, that was me about 5 years ago. But it started out, when I was in the big practice, we really weren't to have like our own, like own social media, or, like the before and after pictures weren't really available. So I started doing a little bit more of a lifestyle, vibe to my social media, just the stuff I like to do. I work out a lot. I was lifting a lot of weights and doing yoga and just things like that. So I kind of focused there. I did have help at that point, starting the social media. And then I kind of faded. I kind of got lazy with it. And now we're just trying to figure out how to best do it. But I do think, it's unescapable. And my approach, like I'm never going to dance or do something ridiculous on social media, but I like to educate. I love to train. I'm going to start training a lot more injectors on a bigger scale. So I love to educate, train, and just, train other trainers, but also educate patients on what we do. So I think if I take that approach, more of the educator, a little more lighthearted, but that angle, that works for me,
And if you wanted my 2 cents for free, this is what you get for free. Please interact with the patients on social media.
Oh yeah.
If they'll let you, let them videotape. Videotape everything. How you do a lift, how you do temple, why you want to do temple, why nasolabial fold shouldn't just disappear because that's not natural. Anytime you can get that patient, that's unique content. And that's what's going to count nowadays. I used to say, you better blog, you better give your FAQs. The Problem is Google doesn't care anymore because everyone can do FAQs the same. It's not unique content.
Yeah.
Well, patient interaction is my new two most favorite words, patient interaction on video. Yeah, on video. But then you do have to, I do think social media is where we're all heading here. But then you have to interact. So if you're going to play the social media game, you either have to pay somebody to do that for you, or you're up all night doing it.
Yes, that's the problem. The time it takes for me to try to do it is a lot because I'm not, it doesn't come as easily to me. So yeah, we're looking at just hiring someone to focus solely on that. Luckily, the wife of the gynecologist in our practice has a marketing background, so she does a lot of what we're doing now. But now that we have all these different facets of plastic surgery and gynecology and injecting and lasers, and it's getting spread a little thin. So yeah, I think just the next step is really the focus on social media.
Yeah, well, congratulations. So my last question, tell us something we don't know about you.
Oh, I was going to say, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I was a yoga teacher. I got certified to teaching CrossFit as well. I really went on a big fitness journey the last 10 years. And I don't teach yoga anymore, but it was a huge part of my life and I still love it. And yeah.
CrossFit, that they're almost cult-like.
It is a cult. It's a good, healthy cult, but definitely.
Well, they say we're all addicted to something, just make it healthy, you know?
Yeah, those are my addictions. Like exercise in any capacity, definitely my addictions.
Well, I just want to commend you for having so many life changes. You've made some pretty big shifts. So overall, looking back, now that you're on the other side of it, any advice for others who are thinking about making shifts that they're just too scared too apprehensive, all of that? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say you've got to listen to your heart, and you're not starting from scratch. Like I'm starting from almost 20 years experience. So it is not going back to square one if you leave your safe environment, because you've learned so much. You've been working for years and you're good at what you do. So a lot of it's believing in yourself. Not being afraid to take a risk. And you never know what's behind that closed door until you try it. And you've got to be sensible about it and have a solid plan. We're not going to just drop everything, but especially women, just do it. Don't stay in a situation because you think there's nothing better for you out there.
I agree. And the way I've always done it is, am I going to regret this if I don't?
That's exactly what I told myself. Yeah. If I don't move now, when I retire, and it just, you gotta take chances in life, and I'm so glad it's worked out great. I'm still working hard and trying to figure some things out, but I haven't been happier.
Oh, that's so nice. And then if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's your website?
It's AllisonPontiusMD.com. I also TurnerMedicalArts.com is our global practice site. And then I'm on Instagram at Allison Pontius MD.
Yeah, check her out on Instagram. You will see a very buffed woman. All right. Dr. Pontius, thank you so much. I will see you at the next meeting coming up. And everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today at Beauty in the Biz. If you got some value out of this, I sure would love for you to subscribe and give us a good review. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, I'm happy to answer those at my website, KatherineMaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at KatherineMaleyMBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.